Back in the 2000s, boring men in fandom were constantly obsessed with what they called the plague of Mary Sues. And 23 years later, their Sue discourse is older than the internet, and unlike a lot of stupid things the internet has latched onto in recent years, the thing about Mary Sues is that its origins have always been bad faith. It originates from fanfiction communities, and while it has different definitions and criteria based on the year, fandom, and how much of an irrational dickweed the litmus test maker is at any given—
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Hello and welcome back, and today we are doing a response video, specifically to Lily Orchard's video on Mary Sues and why there should be more on them. Now, I'm not one to particularly partake in drama so joyfully, but this is one opportunity that I just could not resist taking, mostly because my brain will not shut up about it. So if you don't know, Lily Orchard recently made a video regarding Mary Sues and why there should be more of them and not less. Now, when I heard that was the video she was making, I'm like, okay, this has to be one of those cases of it works if it's done well. But after watching the video, I realized we're working on a really flawed idea that, while not 100% right, it's also kinda just wrong. And yeah, my brain would not shut up to me about, maybe making this into a video, and I figured I should, because I can. Now, let me just be clear before we start. I like Lily Orchard in the parasocially acceptable way a YouTuber can like another YouTuber. I watch her videos, I'm subscribed to her under a lurker channel, and I do occasionally write the odd comment. It's just, I regularly do like a lot of the stuff that she makes. It's just, I feel like this is the one thing where she may have just missed the mark significantly. So I'm gonna leave a link to her video in the description, so feel free to watch that video and make your own decisions. Also, if you're wondering why my voice sounds so nasally, it's because I have a bit of a cold. And the reason, I think, is because, well, let's just say I recently went to work outside with my dad, and because I've been inside an air-conditioned environment for so long, that suddenly stepping outside into 105-degree Fahrenheit weather kinda made me flip back and forth between hot and cold. That, and just the fact that the temperature is changing again. This time it's getting a little bit cooler. Global warming, everybody. It's 110 degrees out here in Texas. And if it gets a degree hotter, I'm gonna kick your ass. So, without further ado, let's get on with this. So, the video just boils down to the argument that Mary Sue is a term that is used in fanfiction circles to describe women that are also main characters in fanfiction. However, she does also list examples in, say, more popular fiction, such as Superman and Indiana Jones, that I guess could technically qualify as Mary Sue-esque, but not entirely. And also, she mentions Elle Woods from, Legally Blonde, and there's, an argument that can be made that she isn't, really a Mary Sue. Oh god, I think that California just popped out of me. And, however, she also does admit that there are some problems with some of the characters, specifically with Captain Marvel, and more specifically in her presence in Infinity War, in the sense that she kinda pins the reason why a lot of people did not like her, at least in Endgame. And she basically explains that the quote-unquote Mary Sue should exist more in fiction, and should probably do more visually and I say narratively exciting things, which, in her own definition of the Mary Sue, yeah, I think that's not a bad thing. The problem is, I don't think we're talking about the same definition of a Mary Sue. So before we move on, how do we actually define Mary Sue? Or at least the more academically accepted definition of a Mary Sue. I think it's helpful first if we define what a Mary Sue is by what a Mary Sue isn't. First off, Mary Sues are not overpowered. There are Mary Sues that aren't that strong, and there are overpowered characters that aren't Mary Sues. Think of Superman or Beowulf. Also, Mary Sues are not character inserts, or authorial inserts, I suppose. Sorry, I don't know how that got into my script. Well, at one point it was easy to spot a Mary Sue that way. It's also worth mentioning that there are self-insert characters out there that aren't even the main protagonists. Like, I'm writing a book right now, and I describe most of the main characters in the book kinda similar to the Stitch Punks from 9. If you don't know the movie, the Stitch Punks, the little Big Planet characters, the little ragdoll thingies, those are essentially the 9 pieces of a scientist. And yeah, it's a very depressing movie, and it looks like a post-apocalyptic level in Little Big Planet. And Mary Sues aren't slander for strong female protagonists. That probably was how it was used back in the olden days, but nowadays it's kind of the equivalent. Using it in that way is kind of the equivalent of calling an Asian man the N-word. Like, I don't think it's necessarily accurate. Like, I get it, people lost their crap when Captain Marvel came out, but I knew plenty of people that were begging for a Black Widow solo movie, and were disappointed when we got it after Endgame. Like, did they really have to blue ball Scarlett Johansson that way? Besides, there's also male characters that fit the Mary Sue description. And I don't think Marty Stew is that strong of a word to describe these characters. In fact, I think I'm gonna use a new word to describe these male Mary Sues. And that is Kirito. And maybe use Marito for the non-binary characters, because we are equal opportunity critics here. Okay, so what exactly then defines a Mary Sue or a Kirito? I'll be using the OSP definition for the purpose of this video. You can watch the video on that subject. Again, I'll leave the link in the description. But basically, Mary Sues and Kiritos are bland, contradictory characters that warp the story and establish rules within a certain universe. And I'm going to be using all male characters for no particular reason. Bland is probably the easiest character trait to spot. I mean, it doesn't take much to realize that some characters probably shouldn't be getting the same reaction from other characters in the way that they do. Or I guess more accurately, they might be doing something so mundane and simple that others in the story consider pretty cool and extraordinary. For some reason. Like, think for example of male main anime characters in your standard harem anime. The girls will start falling for a guy who, by all measures, is not at all that interesting. And all the guy really did is just be nice to the girls? Like, you gotta start wondering, what kind of abuse are Japanese girls going under? Or is it really all that it takes to woo over a girl? Like, you can apparently fascinate a girl with a piece of cheese. Actually, no, because a cool guy could also exist in the same universe and receive the cold shoulder for whatever stupid reason. Like, you could be the captain of the baseball team, get high marks, and still have time to give your girl your attention, while also pay for dinner. But she's gonna end up dating some dork with no ambitions because he groped her and he apologized really hard. Like, yeah, it's one of those things that has become so stupid that it's parodied in anime. And I also groan because guys are capable of doing more. We really are. Alright, we're not all pigs, I swear. It's just those guys tend to get most of the attention. Okay, so how do we define a character as contradictory then? Well, yeah, the above example kind of counts as that, but that's more towards the case of being bland. What I mean is that a character may do one thing or the other, and regardless, will still end up getting the same response. Or, I guess more specifically, won't suffer really many of the consequences. Like, they might do something good or something bad, and it'll still be justified somehow. Think of it like Steven Universe, where regardless of whether he decides to welcome a gem in his family or push them away, it seems like they'll be seen as they're right because they are the main character for some weird reason. Like, one minute he's trying to protect those he cares about through combat, and later he's trying to win over his enemies by calling them family, even if they don't see it that way. Or they'll be pushed to see it that way, even if they have a history of enslavement and murder. And part of that is because of the way that the characters win. I believe Lily already made an entire video dedicated to Steven Universe. That's pretty much what I'm basing this argument on. And finally, the character warps the story and other characters around them. And this is probably the big major sign of a Mary Sue, is that pretty much most of the story and characters revolves around making this one character look good, even if it results with situations that your brain immediately thinks, wait, that should not go the way it should have. That's what I mean by warped. And I'm just gonna throw it out there. The example I'm gonna use for this is the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, where the player, and by extension America, is the Kirito. So Makarov orchestrates the Zakhaev airport massacre, pins it all on Joseph Allen, and Russia goes to war with the United States. Yeah, try to guess why that plot is so stupid.
The thing about Modern Warfare 2 is even though it's not set within a non-fiction timeline, it mimics many of the things that happened in the 8 or so years prior to its release. So it still has a feeling of authenticity. Except for this, one, very small oversight in logic. You know, something small. The fact that the Russian authorities did absolutely no fucking research and investigation. Yes, Allen was an American. Yes, he may or may not have shot plenty of people, but you'd think the Russian government would at least try and look into the identities of the other 4 shooters before declaring war against the United States, a country they've had extreme animosity with for the last 60 years? Did they just think one guy did all of this? I mean, you guys got security cameras, their faces were probably all over them. Oh, one of these guys was an American and we never saw or heard from the other 4? Oh, wait, no, one of them died too, but we never checked into his background or anything. Come on, guys, let's go invade the White House, hooray! I don't know, it's stupid.
Never mind that Allen would somehow have to make contact with Makarov. Never mind that somehow the Inner Circle would have to get out alive without Allen. Never mind that all of Russia would have to agree on justifying going to war with a country that has done nothing but prepare for a war against them, or that they could even land on American soil. As cool as Red Dawn is, neither North Korea or Russia could invade the US. If anything, it's the opposite. It's more likely that the US could invade them. So why do I say the US is the Kirito in this scenario? Well, pretty much all logic and physics gets bent around to put the US in the position of the good guys, to make them the heroes once again. Keep in mind, this was made around 2010. At that time, the US was in Afghanistan, in a very precarious situation. We could justify being the good guys, but rather than fighting an all-out war, we were basically just the world police stationed at Kabul. There wasn't really anything patriotic, glorious, or even urgent about the stuff that we were doing. Basically, we were fighting with our arms tied behind our backs simply because the war was not escalating to that degree. The Taliban was pretty much just hiding in plain sight without really just waiting. We could barely identify the enemy, let alone fight them. But World War III? Where we're fighting for our survival, our home, and our freedoms? Hell yeah, brothers, sign me up. This is part of the reason why the US is mostly supportive of Ukraine now. An unquestionable evil being fought by people that share the same ideals, and are clowning said evil with Wallace and Gromit shenanigans? Hell yeah, give me more of that please, here's $50. Where's my fella? Anyways, another example of this is Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher. Now, Cruise himself is a pretty intimidating actor by reputation. By statue, however, not really. And the Jack Reacher played by Alan Ritchson pretty much fits the description of the book in the sense that he's a magnificent beast of a man.
Potato is in the cage. Expect the unexpected. Mamma mia! Here for revenge. Super kicker. One hell of a fighter. Warrior. Super tough. Super deadly.
He's the guy who you could believe is both capable of bashing one guy's skull in with another, and is charismatic enough to get you to do things for him simply because he asks. I mean, the guy could reasonably play B.J. Blazkowicz from the Wolfenstein New Order series. Compare that to Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher, and, well, you suddenly realize why readers of the Lee Child novels were a little disappointed in the casting choice.
Jesus! Super kicker! What's happening? Around!
In short, Martos basically bend the laws of physics, psychology, and even basic arithmetic, just to make them look good. So, at the risk of mansplaining Lily's video, no, you don't want more Mary Sues. You want more strong female protagonists that aren't held back by poor writing and are allowed to go full buck wild. Characters that can be snarky and witty. Characters that can actually kick ass. Characters like Rihanna's character from Battleship. I don't think anyone remembers Battleship all that much, other than the fact that she was in it. Could you imagine if they wrote her into being the main protagonist instead of Hopper? I mean, that guy is pretty much a character anyways.
You've got skills, but I have never, ever seen a man waste them like you.
There's no way to win, either way you lose.
It's a fortuitous bounce. Hopper is underneath it and onside. Bronson. He's gonna take it.
What do you mean, Bronson? No, negative. I'm fine.
Bronson, you're gonna take this.
Bronson, don't move.
Bronson, come here.
Bronson, you move one more step, you're dead. Do you want to die today?
Me personally, though, I'm more the kind of person who likes to see female characters as not an unobtainable goal. Instead, make them feel more real, imperfect, like they too can be the butt of a joke.
Kick it out!
Run that sucker over, man!
Santos, you okay?
I got that nasty stuff all over my mouth, man. Not funny.
You let him do you on the first date?
Okay, so there's this scene in Jack Reacher where he looks at an Officer Diaz, notices his style of dress, and figures he's a military veteran. And under that common brotherhood, with Reacher being a former MP, he gets Diaz to follow his instructions like a good NPC. But could you imagine if Reacher just gets it slightly wrong? Like, maybe Diaz is just military related, like he has a dad or a brother in the military? Or is a Milsim kid and just managed to copy the same style of dress? But regardless, Reacher finds a way to readjust and still get Diaz to work with him? I think it would show Reacher as capable of thinking fast and carries enough charisma to get some random to help, even if he does slip. I'm just saying, it adds more layers. I think sometimes it's a little fun to see an engine go full cylinders, but I think it's also funny to see it sputter. Now, here's the million-dollar question. Can you get away with writing a Mary Sue or a Kirito and still get people to like the story? Like, can you have a bland, consequence-free protagonist that warps the story around them and have the audience actively root for them? Answer? Yes, you can. But only if it's done well. So, here's what I mean. If you think about it, storytelling is basically an elaborate magic trick. It's about getting people to see something so vividly that they believe it's real, if only for a moment. I mean, I made some Mary Sue type characters before, in my opinion. 2, actually. The first one we'll discuss is from a Ready Player One fanfic. I basically wrote a bland, Whedon-esque character with contradictory motives and actively warps the world in the way it is described to where Mexico essentially replaces the US in the G7 and is a major global superpower like Japan. And yet most of the reviews that I did get out of this basically highlighted the first chapter of the book basically they highlighted the first chapter of the story, in which I basically showed a VR field trip into Omaha Beach on D-Day. Ready Player One established in both the book with war games and in the movie with The Shining that by 2045, most of the films will have an interactive version in the Oasis, where you can play the role of the protagonist. And most people know about Spielberg's magnum opus of a war film, Saving Private Ryan, if only for its realistic depiction of Operation Overlord. Later it was replicated in Medal of Honor Allied Assault, Battlefield 1942, and Call of Duty 2, basically establishing a tradition in video games. In world precedent, filmography, and video game history pretty much clicked in readers' minds and got them to forget about the Kirito of a character that I made and focus more on the idea of riding the magic school bus into Normandy.
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a friend? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good. Next thing that you know,
To put it simply, you have to perform a magic trick by making a character likable, and the way you do that is by putting them in a situation that draws attention away from their Kirito-ness or Mary Sue-ness and towards something worth telling, something far more interesting. Bella from the Twilight books may as well have been a chunk of styrofoam, since her whole is just to be the object of desire by a vampire and a werewolf personified by 2 sexy dudes. Something that for Karens and teenage girls seems fantastic and romantic. The movie Battle Los Angeles can coast on stock character tropes because Afghanistan-era Marines versus aliens is enough of a novelty to ride on. And Rey from The Force Awakens probably wouldn't be shown to be a Mary Sue had Disney and Lucasfilm committed to a direction they wanted the new trilogy to go on, rather than having the story change direction more often than a Formula Drift car. Maybe bring the Jedi out of hiding and welcome them back to the New Republic. Maybe have the Resistance fight the First Order the same way modern Spec Ops teams do. Maybe make Luke confront the past of the Jedi. Acknowledge that reform needs to be made, considering that it was set on the foundation of child abuse and Puritanism. Make a parallel to the Catholic Church in that way. Maybe make the First Order a legitimate threat, not because they have a giant doomsday weapon, but because they challenge the authority of the New Republic by copying the tactics of the Rebel Alliance, forcing them to respond to the same hit-and-run tactics that brought them to power in the first place. Alright, so before I end this video, I'm going to put myself in a vulnerable position for the sake of all this, and maybe show why Mary Sue's and Kiritos deserve at least some appreciation from an author's perspective. And I'm going to do that by sharing with you guys my first OC. Her name is Tomoe Minamoto. And yeah, hit the weeb alert, but trust me, there's more to that than just that. So, She's based on Tomoe Gozen from Japanese Legend and Black Rock Shooter, and her story takes place in an alternate history World War II, where due to a filing error, she is assigned as a field medic in the 442nd Regimental Combat Unit, an all-Japanese-American unit that fought in Europe. She's basically just a POV character to tell their story, while also being a Japanese-American teenager running around Europe fighting Nazis with a katana and an M1911. Yeah, this was made when I was a teenager in high school. So, how is she a Mary Sue? Well, she's bland and contradictory in the sense that her only real motivation is a guy, and wanting to go back home after the war is over to be a housewife. And just like that, I lost every single feminist watching this video. Okay, this was pre-enlightenment. This was before I started to actually recognize what feminism was, okay? That, and she's afflicted with love triangle syndrome. So basically, Bella, but Asian. And considering that this was made during a time of sexual curiosity, depression, lack of a mother figure, full-on otaku cringe, and learning about history, including the WAAC and the 442nd, yeah, let's just say this was not a good first try. That being said, I keep her close simply because I can recall her, in the sense that I can recall her from memory, and sometimes I use her as a base for other characters I make. So why is she valuable to me as a writer, even though she's a Mary Sue? Well, it kinda helps with introspection, like, what is it that I still like about this character? What is it that I don't like about this character? What made me want to make this anachronism, and how can I possibly translate this professionally? What's the magic trick that makes this whole character work? I think I only shared this character once with anyone in public, and I kind of got somewhat of a positive reception. I mean, they did get curious about it. And now I'm asking you guys, what do you think of my OC? Just remember, do not steal. Or maybe ask first before you steal. I don't know, maybe I'll tell her a full story when I think the time is right. But, what do you think, Lily? Do you want to hear her story? Anyways, that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. I know this probably isn't the same video you were kind of expecting from a while ago, but hey, I just felt like making it, and I thought, hey, maybe you guys will get a kick out of it. Again, shout out to Lily Orchard. She's actually a pretty good, again, I mean no ill will. This is just me being very pedantic about definitions of literary terms that probably aren't really listened to by a whole lot of people. Like, I think we just have a breakdown in terms of what words mean, and that's becoming a problem. Anyways, if you guys liked this this video, if you guys want me to make more, please leave a like, subscribe. I think we're almost close to 100 subs. But yeah, that's really all I got for you guys today. And as a reward, here's some Splatoon 3 gameplay video.
That's where we'll draw the line. Surprise, motherfucker.
Report strike team. Close the breach. But I got a feeling Omega Group is just getting started.
Babe. And I'm going outside.